In 1994, long before billion-dollar startups and viral tech empires, a small-time entrepreneur named Uzi Nissan sat in a cramped office in North Carolina and did something almost nobody cared about back then. He registered a website. The domain name was simple, clean, and perfect: Nissan.com. To him, it was just his name, his family name, painted across the digital frontier of a new, uncharted internet. He ran a small computer business, fixing motherboards, selling hardware, and building custom systems. The site was meant to be a home for that business, a beacon in the early web wilderness. What Uzi didn't know was that this simple act, registering his own name, was about to spark one of the longest and strangest legal battles in internet history. Because thousands of miles away, a Japanese car giant, Nissan Motor Company, was beginning to see the internet not as a novelty, but as the future of global business. And when they went to claim their digital home, Nissan.com was already taken. At first, they reached out politely. They asked to buy it. But Uzi refused. It wasn't for sale. The domain was his identity, his livelihood, his name. What followed would become a 20-year war, one man against a multinational titan worth billions, a fight that would test the limits of ownership, technology, and law in the digital age. By 1999, the internet had exploded. .com fever was everywhere. Suddenly, the address of your website wasn't just a marketing tool, it was a piece of real estate, a virtual gold mine. And that's when Nissan Motor decided to move in. They filed a massive lawsuit in a California court, accusing Uzi Nissan of trademark infringement, unfair competition, and cybersquatting, essentially claiming he'd stolen their identity online. But the irony? Uzi had been using his own name for decades. On his auto repair shop, his import business, his computer company, long before anyone ever typed www into a browser. For Uzi, it wasn't about money, it was about principle. He wasn't a hacker or a squatter, he was a man defending his name. But defending that name came at a crushing cost. As the lawsuit dragged on, legal fees soared. The car company's army of lawyers filed motion after motion, trying to bury him under paperwork and debt. His business began to suffer, his family life strained under the pressure. He mortgaged his home to keep fighting. Each day, the courtroom lights grew harsher, the walls tighter. But Uzi refused to give up. Nissan Motor's argument was simple. They were famous, he wasn't. People typing Nissan.com expected cars, not computers. The company claimed his website caused consumer confusion. Uzi's counterargument was even simpler. It's my name. But this wasn't just a name, it was a symbol, a clash between an individual's right to identity and a corporation's control over branding in the new online world. As years passed, the case twisted through appeals, injunctions, and federal hearings. Judges came and went. At one point, Nissan Motor tried to have Uzi banned from even mentioning the car company on his site. In response, he did something bold. He turned his homepage into a digital protest, a banner of defiance. Visitors arriving at Nissan.com were greeted not with car ads or computer deals, but with the full story of the lawsuit laid bare. It became part business, part battleground, part manifesto. And as the story spread, so did the irony. People around the world started visiting Nissan.com, not to buy a car, but to learn about the man fighting to keep his domain. It was the Streisand effect before the term even existed. The more Nissan Motor pushed, the louder Uzi's voice became. News outlets picked it up, internet forums debated it. The case became a flashpoint for the question, who truly owns a name in the digital age? By the early 2000s, the courts had spoken. The judge ruled that Uzi could keep the domain, but with restrictions. He couldn't use it to sell anything related to cars, couldn't run ads that might confuse consumers, couldn't capitalize on the carmaker's fame. It was a partial victory, but a victory nonetheless. The site would remain in his hands. Nissan Motor had spent millions trying to take it. Uzi had spent his savings trying to keep it. And yet the balance of power, one man versus a multinational giant, had somehow held. For Uzi Nissan, the win was bittersweet. He kept the name, but the battle consumed 2 decades of his life. His business never recovered from the toll of legal warfare. The world moved on. Google rose, social media took over, and domains became less central than ever. But Nissan.com still stood, frozen in time, a quiet monument to a war waged in courtrooms and server rooms. In the end, the case wasn't about cars or computers. It was about something much deeper: identity, persistence, and the cost of standing alone against power. When Uzi Nissan passed away in 2020, the website was still his, the name still untaken. The auto giant had won countless markets, conquered continents, but not that one corner of the internet, not that one stubborn man who refused to sell. And so, today, if you type Nissan.com into your browser, what you see isn't a car commercial or a sleek corporate homepage. You see a time capsule, a reminder of the early web, when names still meant something, when one man could still face a corporation and say no. It's not just a domain. It's a story about what happens when an ordinary person refuses to surrender his name to a billion-dollar empire. The 20-year war over a website, fought by a man named Nissan, against Nissan,